Morning, happy Sabbath. Again, good to be here for another week. We have more people today. Thanks for coming. Um, I was going to give an introduction to the organization we went through. We originally heard about Mexico Missions and Beyond, and Cuba is beyond, mostly Mexico Missions, and then there's Beyond, because they were friendly for children, for young people. And that was one of the things that attracted us to them. And then when we got to, so I've been talking with Rich Sutton. He's the main guy who runs the organization. And I've still never met him face to face because he was unable to attend our trip. I think he had a pacemaker or something put in, so he couldn't travel to Cuba. But and then this guy here is Scott Miranda. And so those two guys are kind of the main ones. And they're a very humble ministry. But you see the work that's being done through this humble ministry, and you're quite astounded. As I said last week, they have the infrastructure in Cuba. The other big churches don't have it, the Methodists and all. So they count on our group. And for example, they would give them, the Methodist church will say, well, we'll give you, we're talking in terms of containers, shipping containers, big containers. And they said, we'll fill up one full of food, and because you guys have the infrastructure, you can have half of it and just give the other half to our church. And they say, no problem, sounds great. So they're set up well, and also they've been in Mexico for decades. And so and then after getting to know them was even more impressive. And I could talk for quite a long time here about Brother Scott here. He's a very impressive guy, and he's I think he does a lot of the outreach as well. Not outreach, what would it be called if come to different churches and describe their ministry and tell about their needs and also. Is that what you wanted me to cover?
Sure. This ministry was initially created by Mr. Rich to reach the kids in church. A lot of youth people were leaving the church, and in an attempt to keep them in the church, he just took them all to Mexico. Let's go to a mission trip. And guess what? All of these kids stayed in church. And so that was a deep impact, and more people heard about it and started traveling with them. They would initially drive all the way to Mexico, and I think that happened for a long time. We heard so many stories about Mr. Rich. This is the first time he stayed home in 35 years for Christmas because of his pacemaker. But so incredible stories, and we were blessed to be part of this ministry this Christmas, and that's what we did. I would like to start by the kids telling them what they thought about it and what impressed them, or a story about it. Mac, why don't you start, since that picture is there?
So we were going with me and my mom and Miss Alex and Mr. Scott, our leader. Yeah, so we got in the car and drove there, well, and also Pastor Simone. And then we drove there, and we arrived there to pray for a sick man there. So we went to the house, we prayed for him. Miss Alex did a shot in. And then Mr. Scott noticed a doll on the wall. It was not very pretty. What was it? It was a voodoo doll. And so Mr. Scott asked, like, what is that there on the wall? And then the girl was like, just like, nothing really. And then he asked again, and then she was like, well, just there for good luck. And then Mr. Scott said, like, if you want God in the house, like, you can't have this voodoo doll there. And so then they allowed him to go burn the voodoo doll.
He was a cancer patient that we found out the day we were doing health clinics, and Eric initially went with Mr. Scott and Pastor Simon and prayed with him the first time, and then in a few days we noticed that he was dehydrated, and we went to give him some fluid, and that's what we went for. And then that's when we noticed on the wall and the little doll, but it was a blessing. We prayed with him, he accepted and let go of that doll. Arthur, you want to talk?
Well, in the morning at 7 o'clock, we would come up and, well, at first, at 6:30 in the morning, we'd have a wake-up call, and then at 7 o'clock, we'd have worship, which worship was a really special thing to me because there was a bunch of people who told their testimony that were pretty amazing, and then we sang some songs together, and it was really nice.
Sissy, you want to talk about the people you met? Yes. Did you meet anybody special in this trip, Sissy?
Yes, Pastor Simone and Paul, and it was really nice playing with them. And that'll be one of my
What was your
nights.
favorite game that you played with them?
Hide and seek.
Yes, we made a lot of friends for sure. And so if you guys want to sit down and you get to see the picture from there, whatever you want to do. So this is the first part. We did constructions. We built 2 churches in 1 children's room. There was a church that was built last year, and they had about 40 children. It was a church made for 100 people, but they didn't have a Sabbath school room. So now it was made 2 churches, one in Tacajo and another one in a city called Buecito. The gentleman that was here, the family that was here last week, they were from the Buecito church. And then Tacajo, where that's where we did the health clinic. And we went and we saw a lot of patients. I'll show a few pictures here, but this picture is the day we went a few days after the health clinic. So people already knew us very well. We've been building the church, and that's building by itself is something that they're not accustomed to that. It takes years to build a house there. They don't have resources, and they were amazed. There were all the neighbors coming and looking at it like, wow, this is happening in 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, you guys are building a church? That's amazing. So we had a lot of people watching us all the time, and especially all the neighbors of that church. And the pastor did a fantastic job in the years that he was there, making friends with the community. He went and cleaned parks. He cleaned the cemetery. He was friends with officials there, which is really hard to do, but the officials, and he did a fantastic. So a lot of people knew, even the people that were not from church. So when they said that we were going to have a health clinic, we had a lot of people. And so this day is the day we went after, and we visit the families and got to know a little better than just a few minutes on the health clinic. And the people were so nice and so kind that they invited us to come and to have a meal with them, but they had just rice. So what they get from the government is just rice. 2 kilos, which is equivalent to 4 pounds of rice monthly, and 2 pounds of chicharos, which is garbanzo beans with peas. And that's basically all the food they get from the government. Remember, they don't work, they don't have jobs, they get this from the government. There's nothing to work on, and the government wants to control them fully, so that's what they get. And they don't have much money for beans, so I went and got beans for one family, and gave it to that family, at least that person, that family of, I think it was like 6 people, they had beans, and that's what we were doing that day. And I got the hat too, because people would see it and say, Doctora, doctora, doctor, doctor, and then they would bring me gifts. So we came home with gifts too. So here's Pastor Simone, that's Alex, she's a paramedic, and Scott and I, and we were pushing the car. Pastor Simone on the car that worked partially on an engine and partially on the hands that pushed it. And that's why I was talking to him, and we pushed, after pushing that car for 7 or 8 times, I got home and we were exhausted. And this time particularly, we were pushing the car and it was not moving. And we were looking down like, what's happening? And he was taking a picture of us pushing the car. But I told Pastor Simon, he has a problem on his knee. He fell and he had a fracture. Medical system there works a little different, and he didn't get the attention he needed. Now he has a limp. And so I told him, if you happen to be pushing that car and you fall again, it'll be a problem. And how do you do it when you're alone? He said, no, I always take somebody with me to push. And then I said, well, what are you going to do when it was just you and your wife? And he said, oh, I don't let my wife push. And I said, I pushed all day long yesterday. And he was laughing, but that's just what happens. We have to push. If you want to get a ride from him, which is one of the only rides we can get, you have to push the car. And here is where we ate, a few of our friends there. This is all through the highways in the city. You see little communist, little support to the communism, and they really try to get the people to really think that way. I saw things like, we will never give up. We will never give up communism. Or phrases and phrases like you, right? And I didn't get pictures of all because the truck we were driving, it was like hard to get pictures. That one says, unity means share the el combate, the fight. Yeah, share the fight. Unity and continuity. And so this is Paul. He's one of our friends that we made there. He lives in Tennessee. He went to Fountain View Academy, and his brother is at Fountain View Academy now, so they were good friends with Sissy and the kids. This is some of the Cubans that we met there. They all have amazing testimonies. This is Paul's brother right here. This guy right here on the corner, Vlad, he's from Russia, and he speaks 5 languages. He spoke Spanish really, really well, and he was a good helper there in Cuba too. He lived in Canada with his wife and his kid, and they were all there. This is some of the Cuban friends that the kids made there, the pastor's daughters and sons. This is Pastor Samon and his wife, Yusi. We created a bond with these people, and I can truly say that I really miss them, especially the lady that did my laundry, the people that did the cooking. That was amazing. For 2 weeks, I did not have to worry about it. Here's the health clinics. This is our transportation, and for everywhere we went with that transportation. And this is the health clinic. So what happens, I got there at 11 o'clock, and they were already setting up the clinic, which is just basically a house, and then there's a little space on the side that we used for making the stations to check their blood pressure, their weight, their glucose levels, and then there was a stress test that we did. There was a lot of things that was really well done. Yes, and then the last part was me. And we got there at 11 o'clock. The health clinic was going to start at 3, so we had time to have lunch and then set it up, everything. The minute we got there, the people started walking in. It was 11 a.m., and we didn't stop until 5 o'clock. We saw around 200 patients, and at a certain point I got up and I didn't have time to eat and all of this, because when I got there, they noticed and started flocking, and then I had a cough drop because I was losing my voice. I was just, Lord, I don't think I'm going to make it. And I was like, and then the Lord provided, and I could speak until the very last patient, and then I lost my voice for a few days, and then I had another health clinic, but the Lord always helped, and I was helping with translation too, so I needed my voice. Here's this is a medical student, Caleb. He was helping. He was a good helper. He organized the whole fair, the health fair, and it's his dad. That's Jacqueline in there. She has been to our church. They're from Texas, and our friends, they went with us. Here's the kids when they're doing the glucose test. And glasses. That's a big deal there for people. It's reading glasses. Sure.
So me and Abigail, we were helping with, the glasses, helping give out the glasses, and then we also there's Abigail in the background. We were getting little bags out to give out with, toothbrush, toothpaste, and, stuff that they need.
Hygiene. Yes, and all of this, it's a big blessing for all of them. And there was a story that I'll tell you in a minute. This is another one. This is what was done at a church. It's one of the churches. We did another, and it was a lot of people again. In 2 hours, I think we saw 70 patients. And then, but Caleb was helping me with that one, so it was a little easier. Here, all the people, And the sad thing is, on the very first one that we did, there was a lady that came in, and she had, I checked her weight, and she was anorexic. And I said, like, I called Caleb and say, hey, can you take her back and wait again? Because she doesn't seem anorexic. There's something, their BMI is wrong. And then I went to move her to like, oh, just come and sit here and wait. And then I touch her. And it was pure bones. And then I was like, oh, she had like 4 or 5 sweaters because she was so cold. It's typical for the people that are really, really skinny to be cold. It was 80 degrees, so that you wouldn't expect someone to have that many sweaters, but she was really cold. And then I told Caleb, never mind. And so I sit her down, and I asked her, you're really low weight, and are you eating? She said, it was probably, I saw her around 11, 12 o'clock, and she said, what do you have for breakfast? She said, just a cup of coffee. And what are you eating? She says, I don't have food. They don't have food. When those 2 pounds of rice are gone, what do you eat? You don't have money. And a typical meal there, it's going to be rice and beans, but they have months since they got beans. They don't have beans. So they have rice and those chicharos, there's garbanzo beans, tomatoes. And they have to buy tomatoes. They have to buy tomatoes. They have to buy onions. And that's the only salad. They don't have green salads. They don't know what. There was one patient that came in. They had a cut, and he had a piece of metal inside. So I told somebody, like, can you go get a potato so we can soak his hand in so I can pull it out, right? Once it's a little, so I would see a few patients, let it soak in, and it would be easier to remove that piece of metal. And they didn't know what potato was. They don't know what a savory potato is. They have sweet potato, like one kind, and but they don't, there's like, we don't have potatoes in Cuba. And I was like, oh, I didn't realize. So there are a lot of things that you kind of get shocked with. But they do not have food. They're starving. This patient was not the only one that I saw that was anorexic. There was several people, and the people that you see, but there's people that have a little weight on them. Well, they eat a lot of fried foods because they get a little oil. And they fried whatever they can, so it can have a little different taste than rice. So that's what brings them a little joy, is little fried things, whatever they can fry. Sweet potatoes is one of the things that they fry a lot. But it's very sad. There's cases, they don't get medication for anything. They beg and they cry for ibuprofen. We were able to share medications with them, so they all left with a little bit of medication, with glasses, with clothing. We share as much as we could. We all the crew, all the 40 of us, brought things to share because we knew it would be a good idea to bring stuff to share. Toothpaste, toothbrush, whatever we had, like, we brought it in quantities. And it was not enough. It was not enough. There was kids, everybody was sick, high blood pressure, a lot of people, no medication in the country, months and months since they received medication. There was one person that he was Seventh-day Adventist, and we were carrying things on the days that we were working construction, and he came to me and said, doctor, I can't work today because I have a hernia. So he showed me his hernia, and it was pretty big. And I said, yeah, you shouldn't be lifting weights. You shouldn't be helping. And then he said, I already went to the black market. So that's how it works there, the system. If you need a surgery, the doctor is going to give you a list. You're going to go to a street that they call the black market, and they're going to go and buy all the package that's ready for surgery with all the things that are needed for surgery. Those things are expensive, especially when the salary is $10 a month. And you don't buy much with that there either. But people take months, years to save money for one surgery, and then they're really afraid of going to the hospitals because of infections, and they don't make it alive out of there. So people either they have to do the surgery, they save the money and do it. And this particular guy, he told me, like, I already got the package for the surgery. I just have to pay the doctor now. So everything is very difficult, everything. Nothing seems to be easy in that country. One day we went to the beach called Guardalavaca, and it was pretty nice and beautiful. We did some snorkeling there. The kids had fun. We all enjoy our day. And then Sabbath, here we are going to church. That's our transportation. Pastor Samon there, ready to take us. Eric preached one day, and I did a translation. He preached. We got to the church. Here's the central church in Holguin. It's a big church, a lot of members. I went there the first week, and Eric went with Pastor Simon visiting other churches and doing, yes?
Well, I went with him, and we visited about 3 churches that Sabbath. We saw 4 baptisms, and yeah, we had a really nice Sabbath. We drove all around, pushing the car in the middle of the road.
Pushing the car was part of our mission. Here, we got to this church on the next Sabbath, and the pastor Saman told, oh, the elder's not feeling very well. He has a cough, and I had a cough too. But he said, he's not feeling well. Can you do the lesson? And I had no idea what the lesson was about. And I said, well, okay, I'll do it. So can you bring me a lesson? And I didn't bring my reading glasses, so that was the second thing. And then I said, okay, Lord, please help me here. And I read the titles, and I read a few verses in there, and I was like, okay, I have an idea. But the Lord had a different plan, so he turned my thoughts to another thing that I need to share there. And so I was walking, and they thought I was really personal because I would get close to them, and I would touch their shoulders. And what I was trying to do really is like, there was no power. The energy was gone, the power was gone 6 to 12 hours a day. So there was no light. There's no light inside the church. So at the door, there was a light from the door, and I was trying to see what the lesson was. So I would go and stay there and took a little and look at the lesson again, and then walking away. But they thought that was really special, that I was really special. I was really trying to see, but I felt connected with them too. And then they said, can the kids sing? So the kids sang a song, and then one in Portuguese and one in English. And then Eric preached. We did the whole program in there that Sabbath. But it was nice. The church was really, really nice. A small church. They need bigger churches. So the church there, it's around, there's 40,000 Seventh-day Adventists in the country, and around 500 churches, but they need more. They need more. They need anything. They need absolutely everything. You think that they eat rice and beans every day? No, they don't. Sometimes they don't have rice, and they definitely don't have beans at this point. They don't have salt. They don't have sugar. I threw one of Arthur's bread on the trash because it's humid there, and I had a gluten-free bread that I brought, and I opened, and I left it open, and it got moldy. So 2 or 3 got moldy, and I just tossed it because I was like, I don't want to mess with this, because if there's any mold on the others, let's just toss it. And somebody saw that, and I just heard them and saying like, that's a crime to throw that bread away. And then I explained to them, no, it has mold. And they said, you should have seen what we get in here when they give us bread. It's a hard, dark bread that it's impossible to bite. That's what we get. They don't have flour to bake something. They don't have anything. You go to the houses. I went to visit a house, and I visited several houses. And what they have is, even a lady showed me her house, and she had 3 spoons, 2 forks, and 3 plates for the whole family. They don't have cups. They don't have anything. And the country is really, really poor, and the city's a little better, the situation, but it really doesn't, you don't see what you see in other countries. You can go through any country, Central America, you can go to, that I have been, I am not speaking about the other ones I haven't been, but Central America, South America, here, you see poor people, you see middle class, and you see wealthy people. Not there. You see very poor people and poor people. I'm sure Havana would have a different things. I didn't see it, but what I saw and we were able to see, people were really poor. But there's one thing that makes them really different, and it's they have a smile on their face. And there was a Ukrainian guy. You're going to see the picture here soon. There was a Ukrainian guy, and he gave a testimony there. And there was wonderful stories on those worships that we had in the morning. And usually with a flashlight, because we didn't have power, so we had to sing with our flashlights. And but it was testimony that he gave about the army and the life, and he said, for you guys to look at this poverty and see people like this is one thing. For me, that I lived in this system, that's very different. This is what I lived 50 years ago in Ukraine. That's what I lived. Poverty and the whole communism. And that was many stories, but his name was Peter, and when we first got in Cuba, we were trying to look on the airplane to see if anybody else looked like they were going to the same place as we were going. And then I look at those 3 Americans. That was Peter, his brother, and his nephew. And there were 3 there. And he's a short guy. And I said, I think they're from it. And Eric said, oh, that cute little guy? And he said, I don't think so. He's a cute thing, though. And he was. That cute little guy was part of our mission trip. He was an engineer, and he was a big help. He was very good at construction there. And here's Mr. Scott, his wife, Tammy, right at the airport when we were leaving. This is Sean. He's from Alaska. He had amazing testimony. He was a chef. He's Adventist for just a few months, I think. And he's already been to 4 countries now with Mexico Mission and Beyond and other ministries. Mr. Rich has a son that has another ministry in the Philippines. And I think the other son has a ministry in Belize, a school in Belize. So he's been to Philippines, he's been to Belize, he's been now to Cuba a couple times, Mexico, and he's going to Bolivia. So he's serving the Lord. And this is Peter. This is Peter. He made us borscht one day. He went on and tried to find a market. There's no markets. You don't see like a market. What you see, it's a little stands where you get candy, maybe a few cleaning products, very little. Hard to find toilet paper there, but toilet paper maybe, and maybe pasta or something that you can get. But there's little stands, and then there's one market in the town. And I haven't been to it, but there's not a whole lot of things in there. You've been to it, right? And
Mostly just juices and frying stuff, basically.
yeah. So, and here's our group. That's all of us. There's a few of the Cuban guys on this side here that are our helpers, but the rest is our group. And it was a big blessing for us to just being able to see those things. Sometimes it's easy to just be so busy with our own things, with our own lives, and we forget that we serve a Lord that has a higher purpose for us. And after I came back, I had a hard time sleeping. It was just very hard for me to sit, to go to bed and then forget about it, what I saw there. And it was just like, especially with the patients, it was so hard to say, do you have an Alapril? Do you have one? Do you have one? And I said, I don't. I can't give you that. I can't give you this kind of medication. And then they were begging for medication, begging. And for glasses, for reading glasses, there was one lady she got there 5 o'clock. That day that we started at 11 to 5, that we saw around 200 patients, I think. She was the very last one, and we didn't have reading glasses, and she was so upset, and she said, I'm a nurse, and I really need it. And we didn't have any more. It's just, you kind of feel like helpless, like, I'm so sorry. But there's people, and we had to close the gates because we really ran out of clothing and everything. We need to give it away. But there's a lot of work to be done there. There's a lot of people that are starving. They're starving, one after another. I would see that BMI being so low, and I would just, like, what can I give you? We can't give rice and beans to all of them. We can't, go purchase all of them food. But we did what we could, but there's much more work to be done. But it was a pleasure to serve in Cuba.